Hey guys, John Itag here, and in this video we'll cover some of the fundamentals of functions in JavaScript. Functions are an essential building block in JavaScript programming. They allow us to organize our code into reusable blocks and make our code more modular. So why do we really need functions? Well, let's take a look. Let's say we have some logic here. And then just below that, we need to do a console log hello. And then after that, we have some more logic. And then we need to do the same console log down here. Now, this code will work just fine. However, let's say we find out later that instead of hello, we need the console log hello world. So now we have to come here and replace this hello with hello world. And then we have to come down here and do the same. And then if our code required having the same console log in other places as well, then we'd have to go and replace hello in all the other instances. This doesn't make for good coding. Not only is this laborious, but it makes our code hard to read for us or anyone if we were to come back at any time in the future and try to understand it. And this is where functions come in handy. So how does a function work? Well, first we declare our function, and we do that by typing the keyword function, then space, then we give our function a name, which can be whatever we want it to be. Here, for example, we'll call it greet, and then we do open closed parentheses, and then open closed curly bracket, like so. And then in between the curly brackets, we write our code, which in this simple case is just a console log hello world. This piece of code on its own is not going to execute anything. It's almost as if it's not even there. It won't execute until we call that function where we need it. And to call the function, all we have to do is simply write the function name, which in this case is greet, with an open and closed parentheses. As you can see, we have hello world logged to the console here. And we can have as many of these as we need to in our code. Now, we're not putting anything in between the parentheses for now, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Now, if we need, or if we happen to need to change whatever it is we're log into the console here, let's say we need to go back to just hello, all we have to do is get rid of world here once, and that'll take care of it everywhere else that function is called, without us having to go back and change it everywhere else like we would have if we weren't using a function. Now, functions can also accept parameters, which act as placeholders for values that we pass in when we call the function. And the way we do that is as follows. We declare our function, and then this time in between the parentheses, we'll pass a parameter that we'll call name. It can be called anything, but we'll just call it name for this instance. And then we can console log hello name. Now, to use this function, we'll just need to pass in the names we want as arguments, like so. For instance, Alice. And now our function has a console logged hello Alice. Alice will be the value for the name parameter in our function. And we can use this function as many times as we need to in our code using any pertinent name. For instance, as you can see, we have hello Bob here in the console. Functions can also return values using the return statement. Let's say we want to create a function that adds two numbers together. We give our function a name. Again, we'll call it add. We'll pass in some parameters. Since we're looking to add two numbers together, we'll pass in two parameters. We'll call them A and B in this case. They can be called anything, and separated by comma. And we'll make the function return their sum. So we use the keyword return, and what we want returned is A plus B. And the way we use the function is as follows. We'll store the value of our function in a variable, we'll call it result. That'll be equal to our function, and we'll put in 3 for A, 5 for B. And what this will do is the function will add 3 and 5, which is 8, and we'll store that number in our variable result. And then we can use the result variable however we want in our code. In this case, we'll just print it to the console, like so. We hit save, and we get 8. We can change our numbers here and say, let's do 15 plus 7. We hit save. Our function returns 22. Now let's talk about arrow functions. In 2015, with the introduction of ES6, JavaScript introduced arrow functions, which provide a more concise syntax for writing functions. Let's explore the benefits of arrow functions and how they differ from regular functions. So let's define a regular function. We'll call it multiply. Give it 2 parameters, A and B, and have it return A times B this time. The equivalent of this function in the form of an arrow function will look like this. Let's copy this and paste it down here. First, we remove the function keyword, and then we store the name of the function in a variable like so. Set that equal to what is going to be our function like so. We keep the parameters inside the parentheses, and then we add an arrow which denotes that this is a function. And then we add our curly brackets with the code inside them, like so. And now these two functions are exactly the same. And to use an example, let's comment that out. And then down here, we'll use our function. And we'll give A a value of 2 and B a value of 5. And then store that in a variable, and then console log the result. As you can see, that gives us 10. One of the things that arrow functions allow for is that whenever we have a single line statement like this, we can make our code a little more compact by getting rid of the return, removing the curly brackets, and then moving this one line of code up here. And now instead of 3 lines, the code is only 1 line and returns the same exact value as before. And if we had a function that only took in 1 parameter, like say a function that returns the square root of, actually the square of a number, and let's call it square number, like so, equal to a parameter, we'll call it x this time, and then return x times x. And whenever we have a function like this with just 1 parameter, we can get rid of these parentheses as well. So our code looks even more compact. And then if we want to try this function, we can do square number and pass in 2, for instance. Just console log that. Hit save, we get 4. And that's it. That wraps up this video. I hope it gave you guys the basics of how functions work in JavaScript. If anything is unclear or if you have any questions, please put them in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them for you. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next one.